Howdy doody, neighborinos. It's the one called Fate knocking at your door yet again. I'm Hunt.
And your boy, Big Boy Chungus.
Big Boy Chungus.
Chunga, 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 chunga.
Chunga hungry. Remember that? We were watching Army Birdman.
Chunga hungry.
Oh, we're a couple of cool dudes. So, this is the newest episode of Tabletop Recap. Sorry we did not have an episode last week. Big Boy Chungus was out of town, and I don't like hosting podcasts by myself. I think you have to have at least two people for it to be really interesting.
Because at that point, it's just ASMR.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about...
Stop. I'm here in person, and even I find that uncomfortable.
I was also making a weird face at you while I was doing it. But today we're going to be talking about Munchkin and Super Munchkin. Two types of Munchkin. But we're going to roll for initiative to see who talks first, and then they can whoever doesn't can yield their time to the other person if they wish.
Ooh, 19.
19 to my 7. So you get to talk first. Why don't you tell us about the rules of Munchkin?
Okay, so the general rules of Munchkin is it is a dungeon-like card game where they take the basic concepts of dungeon crawling, leveling up, looking for loot, fighting monsters, that kind of stuff. And they boil into a card game. So I guess the first thing I should do is go over kind of the basic rules.
Just kind of like give us a nice, concise how to play. It's basically an RPG without the RP.
Yeah, it's just a G.
It's just the G, the OG.
So the goal of the game is to be the first person to reach level 10 in the dungeon. You go up levels by defeating monsters in combat, which you can find in one of two decks. There's the door deck and the treasure deck. The reason the door deck is because it's meant to simulate searching rooms in a dungeon. When you start your turn at level 1, you first start off by kicking in the door, and you either get cursed, you get a nice little character bonus like a race or a class, or you get to fight a monster. And if you fight,
you get some kind of card that you can play to alter something or another.
Right, yeah, just might be a buff of some sort, might be some sort of negative thing that you can throw at your opponent. But
I'm already pretty buff, so I'm a beefy little boy. You just gave me a look like, never say that again.
So if you fight a monster in this way, you either win or you lose. If you lose, negative things happen to you, which can include losing levels, losing equipment, or even dying. Although death is not the end in this game. Or if you win, you go up levels, and if you defeat enough monsters, you eventually win.
And to get to level 10, you have to beat a monster. You can't get it by playing a level up card or by trading in items, because you can trade in items for 1,000 gold, and 1,000 gold will get you a level.
Right, and that leads us to the next deck. That's the treasure deck. So after you defeat monsters, all monsters will give you some amount of treasure. The monsters that are harder or more tricksy, I guess you could call them, will typically give you more treasure.
And sometimes more levels.
Sometimes, they'll let you go up 2 levels at once.
Today I battled 2 monsters and went up 3 levels.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It was. You still beat me, though. I was close behind you.
Right, and you can, there's 3 ways to level up. You can either defeat monsters, sell treasure, or you can even get treasure cards that will just tell you to go up a level. And the first person to get to level 10 wins the game. And one of the key things I might add about this game is that just because there's 3 people playing a role-playing game, you are not, in fact, a party. You are 3 people who happen to be in the same dungeon trying to get to the end first. So you are encouraged to actually double-cross your friends and trip them up.
And it's so fun, because deep down, we all hate each other.
I mean, that's human nature, am I right?
Yeah.
Hobbes was right. Eat it, Locke.
Oh, jeez.
But so that's the general rundown of the game, and Connor, our buddy Connor, has
we're trying to get him on the podcast more, but he's been really busy because he's kind of at the end of his run of college.
Yeah, he's hitting the end, and as you know, while there's less time of it left, the difficulty just goes way up.
Yeah, I'm close to the end of mine as well, but mine's a 2-year degree, and his is a more than that degree. And he's also got like a certification thing, blah blah blah.
Once our schedules level out and we all or where we're going to be for the next few years, we'll try making more regular appearances and contacts and whatnot.
Yeah, because he wants to be our permanent third, and I'm totally down for that. We actually have some episodes that we refuse to make without him. He's just it's hard. It's hard at the end of the run.
It's very difficult. But so what we're going to be sharing now that we've given kind of a general rundown, there's a few more rules than that, but that's pretty much all you need to know to understand what we're talking about. Is now we're going to be talking about stories that Connor, Hunt, and myself, Chungus, have experienced.
We might repeat these in a later stories altogether episode, because there might be some people that just listen to the story episodes. But Big Boy Chungus and I used to play Munchkin all the time with our old friend group. And then we had this. We did mention this one in a past stories episode. The 6-hour game of Munchkin that ended at
4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was awful. So one of our friends was obsessed, and he bought all of these different expansion packs, 2 of each, a lot of them, and then mixed them all together to have several giant decks. And the game took so long. And one of our friends played a winning hand, and I could have stopped it. I could have kept the game going, but I refused.
Why would you?
Why would I want to keep going? I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm already too tired to drive home. I'm sleeping here.
I think we all slept there that night. No one went home that evening. We all got about 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah, there were at least 5 of us there. We all just crashed in his basement, which we often did. We either played games so late we crashed there, or we watched Bigfoot movies so late we crashed there, or we watched South Park so late we crashed there.
Yeah, I remember one time we all crashed there, and we were watching the first season of Rick and Morty when it first came out, and it was fun, but he had...
Were you there for that?
I was, but he played the episodes on repeat, so even though I was really tired, I couldn't fall asleep with Rick and Morty just constantly playing over and over again.
He must have done that with just you, because he and I went and bought the complete season 1 right when it came out, and then we watched it with our other friend. He and his sister, we always hung out with them, and then his sister really wanted to go home. She was really tired. She was more of an early bedtimer.
Maybe it was just me and our other friend, because
I think it might have just been you and him. But then they went home right before the finale, and then I texted him and I was like, "You missed the finale, dude." And he was like, "No, no." Yeah, we introduced them to Rick and Morty. But that was a little off topic, but still, it just kind of gives you an idea of what our nights were like back then.
I definitely play a Munchkin version of Rick and Morty.
Yeah. Well, there is another cartoon that we played a Munchkin version of.
Oh,
and I definitely wanted to talk about it for this.
Axe-Cop.
The Axe-Cop Munchkin expansion is so good.
Weird.
It is weird. You can watch all of Axe-Cop on Hulu if you don't know what it is. It's a comic book where the story elements are given to the author by his 6-year-old brother.
Although that 6-year-old brother
is surely a teenager at the very least by now. So the comic's probably over, or he's moved on to some other kid, which would scare me if he did. If he was just I gotta find another kid. That's not okay. That's not okay at all.
You there, little Billy. I need products.
Excuse me, ma'am. I would like to use your son to make money. That doesn't sound okay. His intent is innocent. He just wants to write a comic book. But that's not what you say to people. So
we have no idea if he does or doesn't say that to people. We're just putting words in his mouth.
We're just messing around. But it was a really fun expansion. Lots of fun references from the show and comic. Because Axe-Cop has this T-Rex with sunglasses that has miniguns for arms. And it was just such a funny and fun expansion. I think we should get it, to be completely honest. Because our other friend had it, and we don't really hang out with him anymore. We live so far apart. We've just kind of... It's just, you know how it is after you graduate high school and college and stuff, and you're not around people anymore.
I'll look and see if they got a copy of it on Amazon or something. I'm sure they do. It wasn't a limited edition.
I think there's a copy at Comics Plus.
Then I'll get it there. I'd rather buy locally.
Support your local comic and game stores, everyone. That's what I do. I'm actually taking the owner of our comic shop on vacation with me so I can get free stuff.
I try to do it, but ultimately if I shop there, it depends on 2 things. One, if he actually has what I need in stock.
Yeah.
And 2, if he's not being a jerk.
Well, how far of a drive is it for you?
It's about a 45-minute drive, an hour if there's bad traffic in downtown.
Yeah, because see, for me, it's about the same from my place, because we live in different cities. But I have to go there for, my doctors are all in Macon, and I also drive through there to, what am I trying to say? To go to school. It's on my way to school.
It's also because I'm driving there from where I live, it's just a nightmare trying to actually get to downtown and then trying to get out of downtown the same way I came in, because you think people in my town where I'm living at right now are bad. They're just dumb drivers. They're not bad, they're just dumb.
It's like, no one in my town is bad, they're all just stupid. You realize you and your parents live here, right? When you're making that comment?
Yeah, but it's just everybody else.
Everybody else. If they're related to me, they're fine. Not unless it's by marriage. They're dumb. But if it's by blood, we're good.
But it's just such a pain in the butt to get there to Macon.
Yeah, well, I can pick stuff up for you like I did with the Munchkin TCG, which we'll talk about at some point. We're going to learn to play that. We did a video on it on the B3 Productions YouTube channel. Check it out.
I'll have to go through all those and figure out how you even play that game.
Yeah, it doesn't look hard. It looks really simple. But we'll get to the Munchkin trading card game one day. It'll have its own episode. But let's also talk about... So we've been playing it with Connor to teach him, because he was going to be in this episode, but he didn't feel good today. He wanted to go home early because he wasn't feeling very good. So rate us on Apple Podcasts if you want Connor to get better. If you don't give us 5 stars, he will get sicker progressively. So rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, or he will die. He will die. But he played with us several games, and he really loved it. He really loved Munchkin. So much that he actually wanted to play it again today when we played Super Munchkin.
But Super Munchkin's basically the same game. They've just switched a lot of the fantasy elements with sci-fi and superheroes.
Yeah, we'll talk about the differences later, because this episode's over both games. But the poor guy dies every time he plays it. Every single time he's ever played it.
And it's usually at his own undoing, because when he dies in standard Munchkin, it's because he tries to go all out with I'm going to play a super weak monster and then buff him up so I can get more treasure.
Today he did it to himself.
Yeah.
Today he did it to himself. He played a monster that was weak when he had huge buffs.
Well, no. It wasn't.
No. Remember, because then I said, "Oh man, I wish you were weaker," because I was just being transparent because I wasn't doing so well. He was way ahead of us at the time, and I was like, I could play this card that makes another monster fight you, and he was like, "Ha," and then he buffed the monster he was fighting by 20 to get extra treasures.
Yeah, he would have gotten 8 treasure for this one monster, which is insane when the average monster only gives you 2.
And I was like, you just screwed yourself, buddy. And
because I think we both played.
Yeah, because I played the card to add the monster, and that one of that monster's things was that he dies if he loses to it. It was a level 18. And then he barely made it past that with some buffs. And then you were like, +5 to monster, which I also had in my hand, and I was about to throw down, but you beat me to it by half a second. So he died and went all the way back and never recovered, and you kind of just zoomed forward. You and I were neck and neck most of the time, and then you just zoomed forward and beat me.
He was the candle that burned twice as bright but only lasted half as long.
And 2 weeks ago, when we were playing Munchkin, specifically so we could talk about it for this podcast, every single time he died, the poor guy. But that kind of speaks to how good of a game Munchkin is, because he died and lost every time, but he still loved it. And dying doesn't mean you're out of the game. It just means you basically lose all your items and go back to level 1.
Yeah, you start over, you lose all your treasure and everything. You still keep your classes, races, powers, or whatever you have.
He also had to discard a power with the one I played.
Yeah, you also it's basically you lose all material possessions. But the worst part about it is that when you die, your friends get to pillage whatever's on your dead body.
Yeah, and all the cards are kind of cutesy and funny, because it all looks like it's kids LARPing, kind of like it's kids playing. It also has this just the art and some of the jokes and stuff are really fun, cute, and cool. Just reading some cards has made me laugh. I was laughing at this card with a bear on it today. I just thought it was cute.
Oh yeah, funny. Markov the Beast.
Yeah,
which it's a Russian bear with this number 666 tattooed on his head
and a little green hat. That's the best part, is the little green hat. And I was like, what a ridiculous creature. It's like so dark and evil, but it's also just a bear in a little hat.
It's not just a bear. It's Markov the Beast.
It's Markov the Beast, you fool. The greatest foe. Level 8. It's just fun and cute. But your version of Munchkin is actually different than the standard Munchkin game.
Well, I just have the deluxe version. So with this one, if you buy just the basic deluxe game, it's 2 decks of cards that you play on the table. But with the deluxe version, you get little game pieces. You get a foldable dungeon board that you can keep track as for your levels. It comes with gender cards because, yes, you can switch genders in this game. You start off with whatever your gender is in real life.
You start off with your preferred pronouns.
And then there are cards that will cause gender benders to happen. And though, believe it or not, that does have an effect. There are monsters and creatures and curses that will only affect or will change based on your gender.
The first week we played, Connor got turned into a woman like every time. And then this week I think you did for just briefly.
Yeah, I did.
But I remember the first time he got turned into a woman, he was like, "Oh, I have all these woman items in my hands. This is fine. this is good."
Yeah, not everything that changes you is a curse. Like even death for some people isn't a curse, because when you die, if you're still stuck at level 1, you get to refresh your draw hand.
Yeah, if you die at level 1, it's like not even a big deal. But it's just a super fun game. Oh, and we do have one more story actually. We just got kind of sidetracked, but it was a relevant sidetrack, so it's fine. So 2 weeks ago, when we were playing it to prep for this podcast, I was at level 9, and I was fighting this creature that I could not beat. And remember, you can only go to level 10 by beating a creature.
Mm-hmm.
And you offered me help, and I was like, oh no, he doesn't realize I'm level 9.
I was oblivious. I didn't realize. Well, because see, you were piggybacking on Connor this whole time, and I forgot you were an elf. And if you're playing the original version, elves, all races have special abilities that they can use. And the elves is that when they offer help and they help beat a monster, they go up a level as well, which I think is broke.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was helping you beat a monster, and Connor was like, "No, I want to help you beat the monster for half the treasure." And I was like, "You can keep all the treasure." And you were like, "Wow, that's a really weirdly good deal and not a red flag at all." So I helped you beat the monster, and I was like, "Boom, I win."
I was like, oh, well, we're 4 games in anyway, it's fine.
Yeah, we played several games. Because once again, it's like playing an RPG, but you can do it in a single setting, and you don't have to do near as much math.
And as long as you,
you also don't have to be creative.
As long as you don't throw in 5 different expansions, they're honestly not very long games.
So now let's talk about Super Munchkin. Is it considered an expansion, or...?
It's a spin-off. See, with the regular Munchkin game, there are like add-ons that you can buy for it, but you can't combine Super Munchkin with Standard Munchkin because there's different mechanics at play.
Very slightly different mechanics. Would you like to talk about those? Because it's your game. You know better than me.
Right. So with Standard Munchkin, there are 2 different class or character features. There's classes and races. Races include dwarves, halflings, and elves. Humans are also involved, but everyone starts off as a human at the beginning of the game, which are just the default, no special bonus race. And then the classes include warrior, wizard, cleric, and thief. And I won't go into all those because you can kind of imagine what their abilities will do. Warriors obviously help you with combat. Wizards help you with dealing with monsters with less risk. Thieves allow you to steal stuff from your opponents and escape quicker. And clerics actually allow you to take stuff out of the discard pile because they're dead.
Because they're dead.
And then the dwarves, they're stout but strong. They can carry much larger items. Elves, as I mentioned earlier, they can level up quicker because they're ancient beings. And halflings can actually sell treasure for higher prices. They're very shrewd businessmen. Now, in Super Munchkin, they've replaced classes and races with origins, powers, and what was the other one? Oh, yeah, they have different classes now. So origin and powers have replaced races, and instead of classes such as warrior, thief, wizard, and cleric, you have like mutant, techno or technology, Amazon, and Mystic. So it's like all the different Marvel classes of superheroes. And just like with them, they do different things. I'm not super familiar with them. We didn't play a whole lot of Magic or Munchkin with them.
We didn't. Yeah, So we played several games of regular Munchkin and then one game of Super Munchkin. And then we switched to Risk, which was
a mistake.
Quite a Risk. It was a mistake. We'll be reviewing Risk and Risk. What's the Risk fancy Risk you have?
The StarCraft edition.
Yeah, we'll be reviewing Risk and StarCraft Risk. It'll be hard to review Risk though if Connor keeps kicking our butts.
Well, what I need to do is I need to get a standard copy of Risk because the one with StarCraft has a bunch of little side mechanics that we just completely ignored. I need to go on Amazon.
Connor knew the rules of Risk from memory because he's played it so much. So he was just like, it was basically just playing Risk on a different map.
Yeah, and we also need to learn how to actually read the dice better because he could have just been making up numbers for all we know.
Yeah, weird how when he rolled the dice on his turn, it was absolute. He knew exactly what was going on. But when we rolled the dice, he was like, let me think about it first. Connor wouldn't cheat us. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But it was insane. We'll save that for later, but still.
But so the way that these mechanics work is that with the powers and origins, in order to play power cards, you have to have a specific power level. Like, oh, he's over 9,000.
Except it's more like 4.
So your power level is equal to your character's level, as with all Munchkin games revolve around.
It'll just be under 10. It'll be between 1 and 10, because once you hit 10 power level, you win.
But you can get bonus power levels by finding origin cards through doors. So, like, for example, if you have an origin where you were a government experiment, or you accidentally washed yourself with radioactive shampoo. Yes, that is a card. I pulled one.
That's such a Munchkin
You
thing.
can actually get extra bonus levels. So if you're at level 5 and you have 2 origin cards that give you 5 extra levels, you can go up to... level 5 with 5 extra levels. That's 10 while you're still at level 5. And you can just add as many powers as you can find with that.
Waka.
Mm-hmm. And then
Waka!
Then you've got the different classes, which are, mutant, techno, Amazon, and what was the other one? Mystic.
Yeah.
And those will give you additional buffs as well, like the original game. So it's basically the same game, just with a reskin and 1 or 2 mechanical changes.
Yeah, because it's got the sidekicks, which are pretty cool, I think.
Oh, I forgot about the sidekicks. So in the original Munchkin, if you wanted to escape, you either had to have a card, like a treasure card that said, oh, you instantly escape a monster fight, or you had to roll and hope the monster didn't catch you or kill you.
You had to get like a 5 or 6 to escape.
Right. In this game, you actually do have sidekicks, which I totally forgot about, which are basically a little helper that you can draw. They're both like a second player, but not. They usually will give you some kind of physical buff. They give you an extra ability. But one thing that they all have in common is that you can actually sacrifice a sidekick, and you will always escape combat.
Yeah,
like you can literally
and then they get killed.
Yeah, you can literally just throw your sidekick under the bus.
Yeah, like today, because I had this living car Lightning McQueen Ka-Chow sidekick, and its ability was that it doesn't take up your sidekick slot because it's a car. So I could have a second sidekick, and I saw you get one when you already had one. So I traded you a class that I didn't need because I was already dual classing. And you were like, okay, because you can do that in Munchkin. You can trade cards and stuff. It's a really fun, loose game. And so I had like 2 sidekicks, which was really cool. I never got the chance to really use the second one, but still, it was really nice. And then there's also HQ cards, which allow you to have more cards in your hand, so you can have multiple headquarters.
Do those also give you additional like buffs and bonuses too, besides the extended hand sizes?
It's mostly just hand size. They're all a little different because I had the cave one, and that was just
it's like the Bat Cave.
Yeah, and that was like it literally was. It had the big penny in it. It had a T-Rex skeleton, so it wasn't too similar, but it was obviously supposed to be the Bat Cave. There's also a Batmobile card, but it's like the kind of mobile you would hang above a baby's crib, and it was baseball bats on it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. There was one that was like the Justice League Space Station, and then...
Yeah, I played that one. That's what I was getting to. That's exactly what I was getting to. So I had the Batcave HQ card, pretty much, the Cave HQ, which allowed me to have 1 extra card in my hand, but I also had the Flying card, which allows me to add +1 to my escape rolls. And then... if you have you can't play the Space HQ unless you have the Flying card. So I had the Space HQ as well, which gave me another card I could have in my hand. which is really, really cool. I like the HQ cards. If you get a bunch of them, then you can just run from anything pretty much. Mm-hmm. It's really, it's such a fun game. You should definitely play Munchkin. If you're a big tabletop person, Munchkin is definitely a game for you, 100%.
I love playing it. It's just fun. If you like RPGs, but you don't have time to sit down for a few hours and just play one, this is a nice little game that you can sit down, knock out in an hour, and just have a good time.
Yeah, and you don't get attached to your character.
Yeah.
Because, I'm really attached to my character in our friend's D&D campaign right now, and I do not want him to die.
I think my character's going to wind up killing himself.
Your character is so weak.
My character has a death wish.
Yeah, but that's...
the one called Fate is not long for this world.
You're actually wearing your Fate merch right now.
Yeah, man, I got to represent.
Yeah, you got on your red The One Called Fate Knocks at Your Door merch, which you can find on eBay. We have an eBay page with merch. You can find the link to it in the description. There's right now, for this specific podcast, we have The One Called Fate Knocks at Your Door shirts in multiple colors and sizes. We have another D&D reference shirt. Where's my tarp demon? That shirt's available in multiple sizes. And we also have a shirt that's just the logo of the podcast, Tabletop Recap, that you can pick up as well. And there will be a link to that in the description for sure. Also be sure to follow the B3 Podcast's Facebook page, where we post a lot. Let's talk about the new game room. We're sitting in the game room right now, which is also the podcast room for Tabletop Recap. We play the games and we record in here. So it used to have all this stuff piled up on the floor, and there was nowhere to put anything. But
it was very cluttered, and that's when I moved to this place. When I first went to college, I'm not a homebody. I just kind of live in a space.
I'm the same way.
I do enjoy being in a space that's my own. I'm either lazy or I don't have time.
Yeah. You have a very busy profession.
Yes, but now I do have a little bit more time now that I'm out of college, and I kind of have my weekends off now. So I was able to purchase some bookshelves and some other storage wall spaces, and I basically cleaned up. There's still a few things on the floor, like some posters that I haven't hung up yet.
Yeah, we need some posters we need to hang up, and that speaker needs to go somewhere.
Well,
and then...
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I ordered 2 bookshelves.
And you got to hang up your swords. You got Civil War relic swords.
Yeah, I'll.
That you need to display.
I need to. We're working on that. I've got.
We already have places for them. We just need the things to hang them up with.
But the majority of the stuff in here, we got 2 shelves. One of them is a wider, darker, wooded colored one that I've used to hold up all of my board games and. History books. I'm a big history buff, so I got a lot of stuff.
Is it okay if I talk about your books for a second?
Let me just clarify that while they do depict certain negative historical figures and symbols, they do not promote them. They are talking about how mainly Hitler.
Yeah.
But they're not talking about how good of a guy Hitler was. I got air quotes in the air right now.
They're just accounts of history.
Yes.
And they're just accounts of history. That's it. But a lot of it's World War II themed.
Yes.
Because your entire family are history buffs, and you were a history major in college.
Yes, I was.
So history is a huge part of his life, part of his career, a lot of different stuff. So I walk into the game room. He's going to show me the first shelf that he put up by himself. And I walk in, and I look at it, and I go... Wow, bud, there's an alarming amount of Hitler books on your shelf.
Well, for the record, from just this angle, you can see one book that has a swastika on it. But now,
yeah, but it's
about German U-boats and their tactics. It doesn't actually promote anything regarding, which I don't even know why that swastika is on there.
That's such a weird thing to put on the spine of a book.
Because you can't actually read the title from here, but that swastika is just sticking out.
But you can see the it's awful. I told you, I was like, never bring a girl in here.
Yeah. There's also a book called Nazi Gold in big red letters, which that's actually about Nazi economic policies and how just how bad how good they ran their economy at the beginning of the war, and then how they wound up destroying themselves at the end economically.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually promote anything Nazi related.
If I didn't know you so well, I would have been alarmed when I saw your bookshelf. But I promise you, Big Boy Chungus is not a Nazi. He's not a Nazi sympathizer. It's just really weird.
Well, and as a history major, I was taught in college you can't just teach one side of history. Like, yeah, the Allies' powers and everything are great, but they weren't the only part of the war. If you really want to understand, whether World War I, World War II, any aspect of history, you have to look at the other side too. And unfortunately, Hitler was part of that.
And we need to know about these things so we don't repeat it.
Yeah. Now,
repeating it would be worse.
Now, this is probably the most controversial one, but I'm going to explain why I still have it.
Maybe you shouldn't, bud.
Okay, we're not going to do that.
Maybe you shouldn't get to that. I intentionally left that part out.
Okay, I won't talk about that one.
It's nothing bad. It just couldn't be mistaken.
And in this, I'm going to be totally honest, in this day and age with history, with so many people who don't understand how the study of history is meant to be interpreted, people might get upset. It's fine.
Sadly, the most ignorant people are the loudest, which is why our podcast doesn't have that many views, because we're so smart.
I like that. I can get behind that.
That makes me feel like I'm half worth it.
My stage name is Chungus. That makes me feel really good.
Yeah. But if you want to see lots of the shelves and stuff we put up, and we expanded the table's bigger because it had a leaflet in it, so we were able to make the table bigger. We got all these cool shelves. I arranged all the minis, and we arranged all the Magic and Pokemon cards, Dungeons and Dragons stuff. If you want to see pictures, check out the Facebook page. That's where I was going with all that. B3 Podcasts on Facebook. That should also be in the description. Be sure to check that out. But we've been doing a lot with the podcast. We've been making a lot of ideas. We have a whole list of games we're going to play. We're going to play Smash Up, Exploding Kittens, the Fallout board game, Settlers of Catan, Mystery of the House on the Hill, which I've played once, but it's been a very long time. I've played most of the games you have, but it's been a long time for a lot of them.
Yeah, we should probably do like a retro gaming episode one day where we just do a compilation of like older games, Monopoly.
Well, what's the Monopoly you have?
It's the Fallout edition, which all Monopoly games play the same. They just change the names.
Some of them have a little different mechanics, yeah. So we could do a regular Monopoly episode and then a Monopoly Fallout episode.
Well, no, that is the exact same game.
Oh, that's the exact same game, just with a skin, basically?
If you're talking about like that Monopoly that's got the credit card and the electronic calculators and stuff, no, it's not like that.
Because the Godzilla Monopoly is coming out, and I'm pretty positive it's going to have new mechanics for kaiju.
That would be interesting. But yeah, this one...
Look, I'm not really a Monopoly guy.
Literally, this Monopoly, it's the exact same Monopoly as the original. They've just changed the names of the towns and cities to Fallout locations, and the little metal pieces are Fallout imagery.
Now we can just talk about them both in the same episode, then.
Yeah, we're kind of deviating from this whole Munchkin thing.
Well, this is kind of our closer.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else Munchkin related you want to talk about.
No, that's pretty much it. It's a fun game, but it's not a complicated one.
Yeah, you can learn it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I relearned it almost instantly. And it had been years since I played it. Nearly, like, it had been like 8 years, maybe. It's been a while. No, maybe more like 6 or 7. But, that's probably it for today's episode then. Once again, if you want to see pictures of everything, check out the B3 Podcast Facebook page. You can also donate to us on Anchor or the B3 Productions Patreon. There's a lot of stuff you guys can do to help, but the thing you can do most to help is just listen to the podcast, rate it on Apple Podcasts, and also share it with your friends. And to anyone listening to this on YouTube, it goes up on YouTube several days after it goes up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and places like that. So if you want the episodes right when they come out, then you need to subscribe on Spotify or something. Spotify and Apple Podcasts are the two biggest locations for views, according to the analytics. So definitely check those out. But do you have anything else to add, my hairy little friend?
Chunga hungry!
Chunga hungry! We're never going to let that go. It's so stupid. It's barely funny. But
it's funny to me.
The reason it's funny is because after he said it, I turned, looked right at you and said, "That's you."
And I owned it.
You were like, yeah. Like today when you were talking about my magic, how each of us plays magic cards.
Yeah. Someone who had played previously compared my usual strategies to like that of a military general or officer. Connor kind of plays like the arcane trickster types where he uses mostly black and blue to manipulate and trick his opponents. And then you're just like, oh, I like dinosaurs.
That's exactly it. I only play with dinosaur cards. I'm working on a new deck and it's still just dinosaurs. But that's it. Thank you all for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. And I will see you all next time when fate knocks at your door.